Good evening, everyone at home. Good evening,
Good evening.
Um, so welcome back. We are here today for another study group at the Alan Kardec Spiritism Group of New Zealand. So like we said last week, we had our lectures in the last few weeks, and we went back to our weekly study last week. So back to one more study this week, and we'll have another lecture in the end of the month. Um, and we don't have many news for the moment, but I'm sure it will change soon as we get close to the end of the year. More things will happen, so we will keep updating everyone. But we wanted to make an invitation to people watching at home to start getting ready to come back to presential. Because we have been talking about maybe stop the streaming for the study group in a little while. We'll warn everyone and give it a time for people to prepare and to get organized to hopefully come and join us here in person at the Jubilee building in Parnell. We just feel that it's important. The connection that we make when we meet in person is very different from online. So we are just probably let's just keep that in mind. So we're gonna start reading our Living Spring. And I'm sorry, but Mani was very well prepared and sent us the slides to add, and I forgot. So, I think I'll just read here,
Okay. Yeah.
if that's all right. Hope everybody at home can hear me well, because we are filming also the slides from far away, so I think usually at home we can't read it that well. So I might just read it here on my hand. So that's from Living Spring, number 33. Raising and helping. And taking her by the hand, he helped her. This lesson from Acts, in which Peter brings Dorcas back to life, is very significant. The apostle is not content with saying beautiful things in her ears, so as to restore her general images. No, he takes her by the hand and helps her. The teaching is highly symbolic. We often see people held up in knowledge, joy, and virtue, bathed in the divine light of the Master, and who are then able to help thousands of people up to the higher realms. However, preaching alone is not enough to do so. Sermons are actually sublime appeals, and Christ himself used them. Still, we must not forget that although the heavenly friend taught on the mount, he also multiplied the loaves there for the hungry people, thus re-strengthening their enthusiasm. We, who in the past were dead in ignorance, and who today, thanks to the infinite mercy, already enjoy some blessings of light, need to reach out to others. However, we cannot shirk our saving endeavor by simply giving a few admirable sermons. We have to use our hands in working for the good. And using our hands means getting involved personally. Unless we use our enemies to help Christ build the spiritual kingdom on earth, it will do no good for us to proclaim excellent words about the treasures of the good news or about the need for human redemption. If we find brothers or sisters fallen down on the way, let us do all we can to awaken them with the resources of the transforming world. But let us also remember that in order to bring them back to a constructive life, according to Peter's unforgettable lesson, we will have to reach out fraternally to them. So, all right. So we get ready to do our initial prayer. Today We thank you, God, for the opportunity of being here in person, participating in this meeting, of being home, listening, participating from distance. We thank the friendly spirituality for their presence and for the constant presence in our lives, for your support and persistence in helping us through our troubles here on earth, for your care and advice. We are always thankful. We thank you, Jesus, for watching over planet Earth and never giving up on the human race, on the incarnated spirits in this planet of threats and expiations. We ask that you bless this meeting, all of you, continue to guide us, support us, inspire us through the course of the next couple hours, that we all may have our hearts and minds open to embrace and internalize the knowledge and leave today a little better than when we arrived, hopefully ready to live up to the teachings that we will go through today. Please bless those who couldn't be here with us tonight, that they may be with us tomorrow, and that they may be safe and also receive the good vibrations we try to accomplish here tonight. Thank you, Mr. Pia. So last week we restarted the gospel and we were reading chapter 1. So chapter 1, I have not come to destroy the law, and we read the first 2 items. 2, right? Yeah. 2 and 3, yes. So the first 2 items, 2, 3, 4. So we talk about Spiritism and we talk about Jesus. Does anyone want to sum up a little bit when we talk? Just for people maybe that we were all here last week, weren't we?
Yes.
So yeah, I think it was the final was again, wasn't it? We can look. Take a look at the list.
Yes, I think
Maybe there was an extra person.
Yeah, Lyle and Renata is up there.
Oh yeah, Renata and Leo here. Yeah. So the final was plus 2 people. Leo and Renata, if you're watching, you miss you. So yeah, anyone can help them.
I think it was really good. It's always nice when we start again the studies, and we had a brief discussion about the introduction of the gospel, and we talked about the Moses, the law of justice, and we talked about that they need the justice because the people were not involved yet, they're not ready for the law of laws. We needed the law of justice first, and then that's what Moses brought. And then we talked about Jesus, and he is our model and the person that we have to follow, that gave us all the examples that we need to go is on the right path. And he came to complement the justice law, and he, as the name of the chapter says, is not going against the law, it's not going to recreate the law, it's just to fulfill it. And then, yeah, basically.
Anyone else? Good. Yeah. So we talked about basically the beginning. Well, the chapter is the same. So we were talking about the 3 revelations, right? So we talk about Moses, then we talk about Jesus, and now we read some more about Spiritism. Does anyone want to read? Thank you.
Spiritism 5. Spiritism is the new science that has come to reveal the humans, by means of irrefutable proofs, the existence and nature of the spirit's world and its relations with the corporeal world. It shows us that work no longer as something supernatural, but instead as one of the living and incessantly active forces of nature, as the source of multitude of phenomena, incomprehensible, and for that reason relegated to the domain of the fantastic and extraordinary. It is to such relations that Christ alludes on several occasions, and that is why many things that he said have remained unintelligible or wrongly interpreted. Spiritism is the key that enables everything to be easily explained. The law of the Old Testament is personified in Moses. That of the New Testament is personified in Christ. Spiritism is the third revelation of God's law, but is not personified in any particular individual. Rather, it is the product of a teaching given not by one person, but by the Spirits, who are the voices of heaven, and at all points of the earth and through a countless multitude of intermediaries. It is a sort of collective being maintaining a group of beings from the Spirit's world, each one coming to bring to humans the tribute of its knowledge in order to enable them to know about their work and the fate that awaits them in need. In the same way that Christ said, I have not come to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. Spiritism says, I have not come to destroy the Christian law, but to fulfill it. It teaches nothing contrary to what Christ has taught, but develops, completes, and explains in clear terms for everybody what he stated only in allegorical form. Spiritism has come to fulfill at the foretold time what Christ announced, and to prepare the fulfillment of future things. It is therefore the work of Christ, who himself is presenting, as he also announced, of the regeneration that is occurred, and who is preparing the reign of kingdom of God on earth.
So we just stop for comments. Maybe we go this way.
Yeah, so the same way the message directed from Christ came to fulfill or to clarify, to give another words to the previous law. This Spirit came to fulfill or to give new words to the message brought from Christ. So, and the first message from Moses were personified in Moses. Christianism brought for Christ, was personified for Christ, Jesus. But Spiritism is product of several spirits that brought message.
Sorry, I do have something to say. Last week when our discussion about the beginning of the chapter, we were talking about the Spiritism came to perfect the Christianism, and I think that as we were talking last week, it wasn't right the word for that. Fulfillment it is, and that's a really important thing that I want to highlight in comparison to last week.
True. We just didn't wait for the next.
Yeah.
True, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, yeah, something nice that caught my attention is that we don't have like a person. So we can see even on the books, we can see Alan Kardec here. but we are really grateful for him. But he is not the God's messenger per se, and he helped a lot, and he did a really great work. And who knows his life know that was really hard, but the message, the most important content came from the spirits, and that's why it's universal. So the same spirits that were here in New Zealand bringing the message was the same in France, it was the same in Brazil, and that's what it's really good for us. It is comforting, at least for me, knowing that no matter where I am, where I will be, or the place, and if I'm connected with good spirits, I will be uh, inspired the same way wherever I am. I will be in this case. So this is really good. Uh, like Guilherme said, it is something that it's a message that's going to make things more clear, and it's going to bring and explain things that Christ could not explain. So we see in other books, so for example, the book of Genesis, it's explained all the miracles that Jesus did back then. So for them, they are called miracles. And for us now, we can see that there is a science behind it. And some of them we already know. For example, Lazarus' case, it was like he was lethargic. He was sleeping. People said, "Oh, he's dead," but he wasn't. So when Jesus came and wake up him, he knew the process of lethargy, and he just made that Lazarus came out of that stage, so he wasn't dead. And for them back then, oh, okay, how can I say that? Resuscitated him, and no, it's not possible. Once you leave your body and you pass away, there is no way to come back to the same body. So we know that, and back then they couldn't understand. And now with the science side and the spiritual side, we know all those things. So it's really important and helped us uh, and to be able to follow Christ's teachings easily, at least for me. So I would say that we know that all the religions they have something good, and if you are in that specific religion, it's because you need it, and no religion is better than the other. And for me, if you are in the spiritism, it's because you need to hear everything to follow the right path. And sometimes if you're in another religion, you don't need to hear everything to follow the right path. So I think that's really important for us, since we have all that knowledge, uh, all the answers that we need. We should be able to follow that easily, and that's come our responsibility as well, because we know a lot. We should be able to do a lot and to keep evolving as fast as we can, because we have that capacity. We just need to be willing to do it.
Yeah, I think I like the beginning also this talks about how the Spiritism is the new science that has come to reveal to humans by means of irrefutable proof the existence and nature of the spirit's world, of the spiritual world, and the relation with the corporeal world. So I think it's how the more we evolve, the closer we get to the spiritual world, the spiritual life, right? Because that's the tendency. We become less and less material, less and less materialistic, and more ready to live in a, hopefully we're going towards a more advanced world that will have less and less material things, right? There will be less and less heavy when we talk about matter. So isn't that also natural that obviously when Moses came, so the first revelation and the second revelation, when all of that happened, there was no space to talk about a spiritual world. Imagine coming to people at the time when they needed to understand why it was not okay to kill people, to tell them, actually, this goes against God's laws because the person is going to be fine. They're going to just disincarnate, and you have to sort it out in another incarnation. It's like what? So it's too much. We just needed we needed that on stages. So I'm sure we all know and understand that there is other stages through this knowledge that we have now also, right? We definitely don't know everything, and it's not even everything that is in here we know, right? So how many times have we read the whole book now? And every time we read it, something different comes out. Different lessons stick with us depending on where in life we are when we read it. And that's also something I was thinking of, like how those three stages, the three revelations are. Um, I was thinking that it's like reading a book or watching a movie that you haven't watched in a while, or a book that you haven't read in a while, and how depending on the stage of the stage of your life that you are, you see it completely different. It has a completely different meaning. Um, I remember when both me and my sister, when we were kids, my mom gave us The Little Prince, and we read that when we were very small, like probably when we started learning. And it was nice. It was a story about a prince in the desert and about friendship. And oh, that's nice. It's cute and nice. Fun, had pictures, etc. And then I read it again when I was in my late teens, and I remember being that it blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, it's not at all about the little prince, not at all about the desert. There's so much meaning to the story. And I just couldn't see it because I didn't understand. I read the letters, right? I read the words. I didn't have enough knowledge to interpret and see what were the meaning of the parables, right? Of the figures the figures that he used to portray the message, right? So I think the Spiritism is like reading the book again after you're in your late teens. It's understanding the message behind the stories, understanding that maybe the miracles and all of the physical actions around Jesus' story are not the most important part. That it needed to happen. Like we said last week, we talked about why Moses needed all the attention that he could get. Jesus needed to also make people pay attention to his message. So they had to make use of several artifacts, several spiritual matter manipulations, to make sure people were believing and paying attention to them. It's like being on a very noisy concert, you need the microphone. You need to make sure people are listening to you. Otherwise, you're just a person screaming in the middle of thousands. No one's listening to you anymore, right? So, Spiritism, when for the message to be spread, we also needed the phenomena that it talks about. So, as the source of multitude of phenomena, so that's like until then, it was
so far.
incomprehensible. So until that stage, until that moment, it was incomprehensible. And also for that reason, relegated to the domain of the fantastic and extraordinary. So the idea was and once I heard that, so this guy that was singing this song that we were hearing, and he also was the person that the tutor in the first age that I did interview. And he said this once, and I never forgot, that he even had like a little ball with a veil on top. And he said, so this is what unveiling means, right? It's revealing something. It's unveiling the truth. And then suddenly you know what is under, right? So it's the Spiritism comes to unveil the spiritual world and the spirits, and suddenly all this phenomenon is not a phenomenon anymore, right? It's part of life. We know that it's pretty normal, and it's who we are, just in a different form. So it comes to demystify all of this and make it part of our lives. So slowly, science and society is catching up with it. This is where we're heading towards, right? A more and more spiritual world. So many cultures treat the spirit the same as it treats the body, you know, when we have diseases. And now we talk so much about mental health. This is treating the spirit. This is treating our minds first before we worry about our physical body. You know, so much changed since then. We were talking about last week how sometimes it feels like not, right? Because it's still there's a lot of other things that show us that we didn't move that far. But there are also very good news that we did have some improvement in lots of fields, right? So we haven't found balance yet, but moving forward. Any other?
Just a quick comment. It's really interesting how God has everything. Because what he prepared, he did, he knew already. So he sent Moses, you know, for the people that time, the knowledge, what they could understand. Then after Jesus, you people still like golden child. Yeah, and as you said, was there. Was there the reality? With this spiritual comes, as you said, in there. Slowly, 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 people are more aware now that magic and this doesn't happen.
Because there is explanations.
Yeah, slowly, it's beyond our body. It's very interesting.
I was going to say something else now. Now that I started talking, I remember that also in the end, he was talking about how also the whole idea of Spiritism was to also be accessible to everyone. So that is not something that is separated for only the high end of the society, for intellectual people. And that's probably why a teacher was chosen, right? He compiled in a way that it was supposed to be accessible. Questions and answers, you know, and the spirits sometimes can be very scientific in the way they reply or use quite complicated words, and then kind of goes under and explains everything. Oh, by this it means this. Go back to this chapter, check that, and come back here. You see that it makes more sense. So the books are made for studying. They are made for discussing. They are made for people to read, think about it, talk to other people, question. So this is uh, definitely thought by a teacher, right? It's there is no other way, better way of making someone understand something than allowing them to make questions, right? To ask questions. So that's why the Spiritism centers are also a place that you go for studying. It's not somewhere that you go and in general you can only sit there and listen and you go home and think about it, or just leave and never think about it. Everybody that participates in the Spiritist group is invited to participate from the study groups, not just going to the lectures, right? Because it makes a lot of difference. Being able to, even if you don't comment all the time, just listening to different people's point of view makes so much difference. And hopefully all of us continue thinking this way, that it's supposed to be accessible, that everyone is welcome here, and people should be able to understand everything, you know. So participate, ask questions, and informal enough that no one is also embarrassed of asking anything or participating. So this is part of this how democratic is supposed to be. We are all, like Andrea said, no leadership. It's just something that without other people would never exist. Right? There was no point for us to come here alone, you know, and just be talking to spirituality once a week. We need other people to make the movement work.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So I'd like to add something that came from the book A Caminho de Luz. Yeah. So I'm going to talk about some intermediate messengers sent by Christ. So like Confucius, Buddha, and many other saints, to improve or to give punctual message for different cultures, different people. And also during the Renaissance, in a short period of 80 years, reincarnated 400 illuminated spirits to improve the way the humanity think and act and prepare to receive the spiritual few years later.
That's very nice. I was going to say that one of the conclusions on the gospel, we know that most of chapters in the gospel has at the last part a spirit commenting the whole chapter, and one of them they say that I will say the phrase in Portuguese because it's difficult to translate. Espíritas, amigos, este é o seu primeiro mandamento.
First commandment.
Yeah, well, I think that's it. But amai-vos eis o primeiro, ensinamento, mandamento, e instruí-vos eis o segundo. So they're saying that, okay, amai-vos is the message of Christ. So we can see that the Spiritism is not against that. It's always going back to Christ. And in the second part, like Carol was saying, that's the part of the study that's really, really important. We cannot be, I would say, passive in our life. We have always to be active, like going, always willing to learn more, always going and looking for more knowledge and to become a better person. So that's how a spiritist, yeah, what's that? Spiritist that has to act or should be.
But I think it's several ways of learning, right? We can go through several situations in our life and learn nothing from it if there is no time for reflection. So, you know, if anyone questions the reason and the power of the therapy, this is what it is. You know, you're reflecting about your life's teachings. It's going through whatever happened to you. You know, when you talk to friends or if you are really, instead of complaining about it, you are actually reflecting of things that happen to you. And this is why it works when you sit in therapy, because the psychologist, the therapist, the counselor, that's the exercise that they do with us. It's like, but have you thought of all of this that actually happened around this small action that you're complaining? Look at all of it that came out of it. Is it really bad? You know, what did we learn from it? How can we avoid it happening again? So this is all evolving. This is all learning. If we're learning from something, right? And yeah, doesn't mean that you're not supposed to be studying books and when we can. But it's really about people's capabilities and the reminder that we all can carry on evolving. It doesn't matter what is the status of our knowledge, the knowledge that we already have, or even that I want to say, like, if you're already very intelligent, you know, like doesn't matter if you're very evolved, no morally, the other one, the word is like in my mind.
Thank you. That's
Intellectually. Thank you, Karen. Sometimes, like it just doesn't come. So if you're very intellectually involved, it feels like, oh, the person does study, they're really smart, but we need to remember that everybody that is already very intellectually involved means that these are lives and lives that the person has been studying. It's not something that is just given, like, oh, in the next incarnation, I will just become very smart. It's not. It's an accumulation of knowledge, right? And then we know that lots of people that are very intellectually smart, they have a um, very hard time with basic emotions, with dealing with their moral side. It's really not as strong. They have difficulty with just general social life, right? So we all tend to work, how one of our legs is shorter than the other, one arm more stronger than the other one. It's really hard to balance both. So that's the challenge, right? That when we are evolved spirits, perfect spirits, you will have it all. But can you imagine, working, being very intellectually involved and also very kind and patient. It feels like we can only work on one at a time. If we're lucky, we are working one, right? Alright. Let me see if I can read more. Maybe we will read one more because then the one after that is really big and we're gonna have to break it through. Do you wanna read? Yeah.
The alliance between science and religion. Science and religion are two levels of human intelligence. One reveals the laws of the material world, and the other the laws of the moral world, but neither having the same principle, which is God, can contradict each other, can contradict the other. If they were to negate each other, one will necessarily be wrong and the other right, because God could not possibly be willing to destroy God's own work. The incompatibility that is thought to exist between these two orders of ideas arises from an erroneous observation and an excess of exclusivity on one side and the other. This has resulted in a conflict from which both disbelief and intolerance have emerged. The time has come in which Christ's teachings must receive their completion, in which the veil cast intentionally over some parts of these teachings must be lifted, in which science ceases to exclusively materialistic and takes into account the spiritual element, and in which religion ceases to misinterpret the organic and immutable laws of matter. These two forces supporting each other and advancing together will lend each other mutual support. Then religion, no longer having to endure the discredit of science, will acquire unshakable power because it will be in accord with reason and will no longer be able to oppose the irresistible logic of the facts. Science and religion were unable to understand each other until today, because each is examining matters, matters from its own exclusive point of view. They mutually reject each other. Something was needed to fill the gap that separated them, a mark of union that would bring them close to each other. This mark of union resides in the knowledge of the laws that govern the spiritual world and its relations with the corporeal laws as immutable as those governing the movement of the heavenly bodies and the existence of beings. Once they were proven By experience, these relations caused a new light to dawn. Faith turned towards reason. Reason found nothing logical in faith, and materialism was defeated. But in this, as in everything else, there are persons who remain behind until they were swept along by the movement of the whole, which crushes them if they try to resist it instead of surrendering to it. It is a whole moral revolution that is occurring at the time and it's molding people's spirits. After being prepared for over more than 18 centuries, this revolution is nearing its fulfillment, and it will mark a new era for humankind. The consequences of this revolution are easy to foresee. As for social relations, it must bring inevitable changes that no person has the power to oppose because they are in the designs of God and result from the law of progress, which is law of God. Well, this is explaining that in the future, the science and the religion will be one. So in the beginning, they are two different things, and we still are. We are evolving, and what it's saying here is that the science will start seeing the existence of the spiritual world, and the religion is going to be start accepting the laws of science, laws of matter. So we can see, for example, I can talk more about the science side because the religion, I only know Spiritism, so I cannot compare. But in the science, you can see we start talking about our mental health, and we can see that all the time we have always thinking about the mental health and understanding there are some things that are not in the body, and sometimes just by thinking about something, we can materialize some sensations in our body, and the science is studying. I know for sure that I forgot the name of the sugar pills that are not really placebo. Yeah, so if you want to start selling a new drug, or if you want that drug to be approved, it needs to be more effective than a placebo. If it's not more effective than a placebo, you cannot sell that drug. Or that drug is not approved to be sold by, I don't know who approves that, but I know that this is the process. So they have already something in place that, okay, what is the placebo? And then we know that's our willpower to fix things by ourselves. I know that's not everything. So when you get those like really difficult depression cases, it's not just your willpower is going to help you to go through those things. You need the medicine, and we have medicine here at Earth because it's something that God gave us to improve, to not get sick. So we have those two sides. We need to understand sometimes the help will be on the material world, but sometimes the help will be from the spiritual world. And I can see that the science is progressing through that path. And according to this, one day they will be revealed everything from the other side. The same knowledge that we have here is going to be a universal knowledge, and I think it's going to be really good because I believe the science will grow even more once we have that knowledge available to everyone, and everyone will understand all the truths from the other side, let's say.
Yeah,
It's not possible.
yeah, I was trying to learn from so in this, there are some gaps that have to be filled. And the other point, interesting point is, nothing is forced, and we cannot speed up over the human limit. So everything has to be conquered step by step and accepted and not imposed. That's why we slowly in a correct direction. That's it.
Yeah, I think it's, we talked about lots of things that were on this part before we got there, right? And it's just the combination of science and religion is already here, right? But it's not, obviously not for everyone. So I think for us it's very clear that one thing doesn't exist without the other. And for lots of people that are, for lots of scientists, religion is still seen um, as something that started so many years ago in a way to control people, you know, as a power move. And it's obviously is made by humans, so it's imperfect. And this is the type of religion that majority of people have contact with. So a lot of people say, oh, I don't believe in God, or I don't have a religion because religion is not good for you. That's where we get fanatics, you know. But it's not true. It's not religion that starts fanaticism, right? It's when it's the lack of rationalized faith, is the lack of study, is the belief that you know the truth and no one else does, right? So the more when we meet people that are so certain of something, and especially something so big, you know, that is unknown, that you have no proof, you have no way of explaining why you believe it, you know, this is irrational. So this irrational belief is not faith, right? Faith needs to be rationalized, needs to be based on something. We need to know why we are believing it, to believe it wholeheartedly in something. So the more science advances, the more things make sense, and the more they believe on them. So isn't science already a religion itself? In our definition as spiritual cities, they already have their religion. Everybody that dedicates that amount of time to something, into discovering things and believing that because they are searching for their knowledge, they already have a religion, right? And they already found God. So the way we believe in God is very scientific. It's not the old man sitting on a cloud, puppet master. You know, it's not. It's God is not a person. God is not material. God is not in charge. Created the laws, created the worlds, the universe. It's whatever you want to call it. And I think most scientists already believe in God the way we do. But the concept that they have of God and religion, it's really in the past. It's really something that was probably created with the Mosaic law and hasn't been updated yet. So it's slowly things will merge, and more people will understand that there is a different way of living religion, of living our faith, right? Of merging science and religion into one. That one thing, and it says on this part of the text, one thing can't exist without the other. We need science, and if one thing contradicts the other, it means one will be better than the other, right? One will be right, the other one will be wrong. So there's no such thing. Science and religion are supposed to be the same, working together, and one supporting the other, proving the other right. So two parts of one thing, right? Of one, I don't want to say one religion or one side. So it's just two parts of
God's law.
of the same topic that we keep studying and coming here together to talk more about. Okay, so we're gonna pass to Spirits book. We are, I should have known the chapter by now because we have been in it for such a long time. 19, the information of spirits in the corporeal world. Sorry.
537.
537. So last week we only read 536. So we talked about, does anyone want to talk about what we talked about last week? Anyone remember? Can anyone have some help there? So we talked a little bit about remember the weather, who controls the weather, if it rains it's because the spirits can go and make it rain, so they can they do it any time? No, because I just said that, right? So God created the laws and the planet works and André had a great comparison with the computer programs, so it's already programmed in a way that everybody knows what they have to do. It's a very well choreographed ballet of the elements and the climate works. The spirits work on the climate. Yes, but they do what they're supposed to do. Right? It's otherwise they wouldn't be in charge of what they're doing. If they wanted to play games with the rain and hurricanes and etc., they probably wouldn't be in charge of that section of it. So yeah, remember now? I started reading, I was like, oh yeah, it's the whole programming thing. Right, so we will read one question each. So maybe I'll start and we go around. 537. The mythology of the ancients is entirely based on spirit ideas, with the difference that they regarded spirits as deities. And they represented those gods or spirits as having special attributes. Thus, some were in charge of the wind, others the lightning, while others presided over vegetation, etc. Is this belief entirely without foundation? Is very well founded. Yes, it is still very far from the truth. Along the same lines, are there spirits inhabiting the Earth's interior, presiding over geological phenomena? Such spirits do not actually inhabit the Earth, but they preside over and direct these phenomena according to their particular attributes. Someday you will have an explanation for all those phenomena, and you will comprehend them better. Okay?
Over the phenomena of nature for a special category in the spirit world, are they separated beings or spirits who have been incarnated like us? Who will be or who have been? Do the spirits belong to the higher or lower orders of the spirit of the earth? It depends on whether the goal is more material or intelligent or less. Some command, others execute. Those who perform material functions are ways of the lower order among spirits, just as among human beings.
529. In the production of certain phenomena, storms for example, does a single spirit act, or do they gather in mass, in enormous masses?
540.
It's a big one.
Thank you. Do the spirits who act upon the phenomena of nature do so with full awareness and in virtue of their free will, or out of an instinctive and unreasonable and reasoning impulse? In the answer, some in one way, other in the other. Um, Let us make a comparison. Consider the myriads of animals that little by little build up island and archipelagos in ocean. Do you believe that there is no providential purpose in this and that this transformation on the surface of the globe is not necessary for its overall harmony? Yet, all this is accomplished by animals of the lowest degree while they are providing for their own needs and without perceiving that they are God's instruments. In the same way, the least advanced spirits are useful to the general world. While preparing for life and before having full awareness of their acts and free will, they act upon certain phenomena in which they are unwitting agents. At first, they execute. Later, when their intelligence is more developed, they command and direct the matters of the material world. Still later, they direct the things of the moral world. Hence, everything is useful. Everything in nature is linked together, from the primitive atom to the archangel, who also began as only an atom, an admirable law of harmony, which your limited minds cannot yet grasp in its inter.
Any comment?
Yes, there is something interesting here that says that even these single animals are part of are God's instruments. At the beginning, they execute. Later, they can command or direct matters, and even later, they will direct things to the moral world. So it's interesting scale of evolution. So nothing is lost, nothing is without a reason. Everything is part of the universal evolution.
Uh, like Kim said, everything has its purpose. Sometimes not clear, and sometimes we can have more than one purpose as well. So for the animal there, he's just looking for the food that he needs to eat. But after like thousands of years, he's going to consuming the food from one place, generating some things on the other side, and then it moves the whole geographic location. So yeah, that's it's really nice. And the same thing applies to us. We have our immediate goal here. That's probably when finish here, going back to home, eating something and going to sleep. But across all the incarnations, we're going to complete our goal that's become perfect beings and helping everyone around us. And yeah, that's God's plan for us.
Yeah, I find it interesting how much it talks about working together. Like it's not just when asked the question about who takes care of the phenomenon. It's a single spirit. No, it's a mass amount of spirits working together. So it's imagining this harmony where the spirits are so evolved that they just work together doing amazing things like a massive storm. And because we can't even grasp the concept of how it would be formed and what we would do. But we can accomplish very few things as one in this planet that we live. We have a lot of difficulty working together. So just think quickly about your work or about your family. You know, how many, how many. I was thinking about as we were reading. I was thinking like, oh my God, my fiance and I can't even put a cabinet together. You know, all the screws, put the parts A, B, C, blah, 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 without arguing. You know, it's those types of small jobs create it is a rehearsal for bigger things, right? So it's this was probably the beginning of our relationship. And one day I thought, oh, this is the best metaphor of all. Like we can't even do this. We had to learn how to do these small things together. Now we can. But every time we do it, I still say it in the end after it's done because we had lots of furniture to put together in the last few months. So every time we do it, any project that we do together, I say, remember the first one we did it, how much we fought, and now we can actually do it without without arguing. We understand our strengths and work together. So you better this, I'm better at this, so let's do it together because we can make it faster. But how long it takes us? This is just two people. So a mass amount. So this myriads of so incountable animals that work together to create the islands and to change the whole ecosystem. They don't know they are doing it, but they are. With time, we will get there. So right now on Earth, on our small existence, we don't know the meaning of all of this. We don't know where we are heading. We just know that we have to keep moving forward because this is the only, not the only option. We can always stay where we are. But this is the only thing that makes sense, right? All of us have this desire for something more, to keep learning, or to keep evolving, to keep making life a little easier. And you know, if you don't believe on any of the things that we are here studying, at least everybody has a desire and instinct of making life better, life easier, more livable, or being happy. So this is where God's project is so perfect that keep pushing us to move forward. Everything that we gained as a planet, everything that we invented, that we discovered, that we unveiled, it's because of this sense of unsettlement that exists inside all of us, including the animals, right? If they didn't have the instinct, if they didn't have the necessity of moving around, of doing their job, right? So the way the bees feed themselves, they also pollinize the flowers. The flowers and the pollen is what gives us food. So everything there, everything in the planet has its job. And what happens when we take one animal out of the chain, right? Everything breaks and gets unbalanced. So there's so much knowledge in this, in God's planet, in everything that, in God's plan, in everything that He created and how it works. That for us, it's mainly just keep focus on ourselves and keep evolving. You know, it's gonna be alright. You don't have to do much around you. For things to work out, the planet kind of takes care of itself. If we are doing the right thing, you know, we wouldn't have to be putting out fires, literally, and sorting out floods and etc. We just kick the scale, not even kick, we just kicked it away, you know. So now lots of work to do to fix it, but this is just us trying to close the circle again. So imagining that we will get to the stage that we work together all the time with our spirits. We know that we don't become one, but we just become an actual society. We become an actual, more than a society, we become brotherhood. We become an actual family in the best sense of it. So it feels almost impossible to imagine how that would be. But it's incredible to think in this amount of spirits working together to make something happen. It must be really, for us, in the land of war, it must be really magical. It's still kind of like the spirits and spiritism was one day. Unbelievable to us now, it feels kind of unbelievable. Thank you.
No.
Oh, good.
And I kept thinking two things what you said about the rehearsal for some things that we do sometimes seem to be useless, but sometimes it's just preparation. So when we can compare us like children assembling Lego, so we are in that phase. In one day, that same children will be skyscrapers. So nothing is useless. So everything can be used in a good way.
Yeah, when you had that comparison between like building furniture and working in masses, I start thinking all books that I read, all of them, there is no job that was one person working alone. It was always a group of people, a group of spirits, and sometimes even the whole city of the spiritual city working to help people that just got disincarnated or helping mentalizing good thoughts so we can go through a difficult phase here on earth. And it's always group here. So if you like to work alone, have bad news. Because yeah, there is no working alone in the spiritual world.
If we think about it, not even in this world, right? We're never alone. So it's a one-sided thing, you know. But obviously, in a broad sense, right? I'm joking, but you're right. If for majority of us, that is like all making. How many of us in school or in college, uni, when it was like, oh, it's a group, it's a group assignment, and everybody's like, oh my god, now we're gonna have to figure it out. There's always someone that doesn't work, and I want to do all the work, and you know, so it's that was the beginning of society telling us that we need to know how to work in groups. Majority of our jobs are social. Majority of us have at least a handful of relationships in our lives, you know, outside of work, in our personal lives, even if we are not married, dating, we have friends, we have family, you know, so it's this is the group of people that we move, that we create the islands together, right? And it's always challenging, but imagining that those spirits get assigned to do this type of work for probably an incredibly long amount of time, right? I can't imagine that they evolve to that stage, that they get to do something like that, and they just do it for a few weeks and move on to something else, you know. So it's a collective of spirits that work as one and that know each other so well that they can create something this big flawlessly, you know. How many years a ballet company practices the same dance, hours and hours and hours a day, every day for a whole year, for months and months to be able to present what they do and look the way it does. It takes a lot of practice and takes a lot of patience and dedication. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. It was very productive. We so you read now 5:41 next.
Yeah, no question.
So we are gonna do our collective vibration once more together here at the Parnell building. So if you're home and you want to put some water in a glass or in a bottle near you to get magnetized, so you can vibrate with us. It's up to you. You don't have to. And now we are going to vibrate together and go straight to our final prayer. And I won't come back to say goodbye. We're just going to finish on the final prayer. So thank you if you're watching us at home. We'll see you next week. And here, after our final prayer, we just have our water and go outside if you want to talk. If you want to talk a little bit, just so the spirits can keep working here in the group. So thank you, everyone. Put on some music. Be friend with spirituality. We learned so much about you tonight, about your collectiveness, your ability of working together as a group, of moving towards the same goal, of respecting each other's differences, working on each other's strengths. So now, when we prepare ourselves for our collective vibration, we focus on the collective part, on how we are all a drop in this big ocean that is planet Earth, that is the universe, that is God's creation. But each drop in this ocean counts. How a very, very small drop falling in a quiet lake makes a big reverberation in the water. A single drop can create quite a few waves for its size. So today, with our eyes closed and our hearts open, we'll take time to imagine a beautiful, peaceful river that doesn't have still waters. We can see the water running through. We can hear the rush of the river flow. And remember of the peace that nature brings to us when we are close to a river, to the sea, to the powerful energy of the water. We imagine being embraced by the rain. How much energy it brings us. How much can we learn from nature, from the natural effects, from the rain, from the power of lightning, of thunder, from the rivers, from the sea. Just like the quiet river gurgling down towards a big waterfall, we imagine our thoughts, our feelings, our best energies traveling, floating towards people we meet, floating towards the one person that we have thought about all week and might be needing this powerful energy of the water, this powerful energy that he, this small drop in this big river, can provide for him. We can see that person, or those people, being embraced by the water, getting slowly soaked in our best thoughts, slowly invoked by our best vibrations. We ask now your permission to finish one more hour of the Spiritism group study. We thank you for your presence, incarnated or disincarnated, all of us, for sharing with our best to understand, internalize the knowledge that was shared here tonight. We ask you, God our Father, to keep blessing those who are in countries going through conflicts, in places that have been reached by misery, by hunger, by war, by disease, that all those suffering spirits may receive our best thoughts, our best vibrations, and above all, that we may carry on doing our part, that we may carry on being not a passive drop in the ocean, lost in all the water, but that we may carry on swimming together through this river of challenges, overcoming the obstacles around us together, working towards something bigger than us, remembering that the waterfall is definitely in front of us, and we just have to carry on. So we thank you, friendly spirituality, the mentors of this group, our personal mentors, for your help and strength on keeping us in the right path. Thank you, and so